I stand as Comrade Shehu Sani representing Kaduna Central. Mr. Nominee, your resume is a narrative of distinguished career in the military and later in politics. I will ask you, let me have your view as an ex-military man. Nigeria is involved in a serious war against an insurgent group that threatens our peace, our freedom, our democracy, and our collective existence as a people. What is your view on the policy of setting deadlines, taking cognizance that we are engaged in a war that is unconventional, fighting against a force that is a guerrilla force, and also with some litters of suicide bombers? Do you believe that setting a deadline in December, we will achieve our target? That is one. Secondly, the military in Nigeria have been reputed to have performed credibly well in many wars within the African continent. In Congo, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and in many countries where conflicts occurred. Why has it become impossible for such a military with such reputation to achieve similar feat in Nigeria in the last 6 to 7 years? Thirdly, the Nigerian army has fought to keep this country together. It's been over 4 decades since the end of the Civil War, and we have seen a resurgence of people that call themselves secessionists. And in that category, you have irredentists, nihilists, anarchists, and people of all background who feel that they should carve out a nation out of Nigeria. What do you think is wrong? We could not have taken the lessons out of the Civil War, and now some persons are threatening to secede out of Nigeria. And the last question. I have read within your resume, you have served in NDA, and my constituency hosts the NDA. Can you please give us your idea of criteria for admissions within that institution, taking cognizance of the fact that many candidates sit down for exams and you come out with very few names? What were your considerations for such admissions? Thank you. Representing Kaduna Central. Mr. Nominee, I've been reading your articles in the last 30 years. Radical, progressive, and most times controversial. And now, in one of your articles in the month of June 2014, titled Lamentation of a Nation, you theorized that the insurgency we are having in the Northeast was a conspiracy by the imperialists to ensure that we consistently remain destabilized. Lamentation of a nation, I'm bringing back your memory to it. And secondly, the body language of most of your write-ups have been seen to be pro-Iranian, anti-Saudi. If you happen to be a foreign minister, how will you balance your position as a minister, Nigeria's foreign policy, with your proclivity to Iranian ideas? And then number 3 I have, You are also a journalist, an editor. I can see in the last few years a situation whereby journalists are employed and they are not paid, and some of them convert their pens to guns to survive. What is your recipe if you happen to be an information minister? Thank you. Partially support the motion and partially against it. On one side of it is that I'm deeply concerned about the state of banking in the rural areas. Since the 80s to the 90s and to the present date, there have been attempts by different governments in the past to encourage and promote banking in our villages, from People's Bank to Community Bank to microfinance banks. Up to now, it has not been that successful in terms of getting our rural dwellers to key into the banking sector. Now, bringing about the BVN exercise has to take cognizance of the very fact that our people in the rural areas are still not that bank friendly. And I have seen a lot of policies being brought about by our banking sector and so many things. I think we need to be very cautious. We are still a developing country. And exercises that are successful in first world or second world, cannot that be easy to be successful here? And for that very important factor, I strongly suggest that as far as the rural areas are concerned, whatever policy we are going to take on banking must really be reflective of the peculiarity and the uniqueness of people living in that very sector. So I will say it from this very point that BVN exercise is good to check the shenanigans within the financial sector, but it should also be very considerate to the very fact that we have a population for which most of them are still not keen in. We shouldn't encourage policies and interventions that will further push our people to be keeping their monies in their homes or in what we call asusu and other things. So I will say it in this term that BVN is good. It should be a continuous exercise, but as far as our rural folks are concerned, whatever that can be done to encourage them to bring the little they have to the bank, I think should be done. Thank you very much. Stand to align myself with the principles and spirit of this motion, particularly pointing to the series of problems being faced by the aviation sector. Our people have been exploited by airlines companies, both domestic and foreign. You buy exorbitant tickets and be treated like a second-class passenger than we have in all parts of the world. And what is worrisome is when people raise issues about our national carrier. National carrier is not simply about economics. It is a pride of a nation. It is about the security of a nation itself. It's not tenable to say smaller and poorer nations can run a national carrier while we can't. And if you look at all those things now, the Nigerian Airways, I believe if we will do everything possible to return it back to function, we'll do a lot of things. The issues being raised was that government officials do not pay. You can create a mechanism whereby such issues can be tackled. And again, the aviation sector has seen a lot of interventions and policies both by the executive and legislative arm of the state in the last 20 to 25 years. But nothing has changed. There was a minister who made it very clear that our planes are flying coffins, and they are not much different from what they were in the past up to this very time here. So I will strongly suggest that we should look at the possibility. If Kenya can run a national carrier, Ethiopia can run a national carrier, Turkey can run a national carrier, there is no reason why a nation of 107 million people cannot run a national carrier. Thank you very much. I will first of all align the spirit of this bill to the memory, the hard work, and the legacy of the late Professor Dora Akunyelu, a woman who sacrificed her life and worked hard to bring safe, affordable, and the best of medicines and drugs to our houses. I will also commend the proprietor of this bill for such a well thought of idea of having a bill that will make it safe for us to believe in what we are buying and also believe in what we are having. This bill reflects the reality of the situation in Nigeria today. Fake and counterfeit drugs has consumed millions and millions of lives of our innocent citizens in this country. From children to babies, to adults, to old persons, they have fallen victims of counterfeit drugs. And the content of this bill sum up the whole situation and also address the problem from the root because of it. We can't address the problems of counterfeit drugs without reaching out to the very countries that export them to our land here. And as such, the wholesome address of the problem is the solution. We need to get to the root of the matter. Those who aid, abet, import, transport, sell counterfeit drugs need to be brought to book. And we know of the existence of NAFDA for a very long time. But without demeaning the effort of those who are at the helm today, we can say it is very difficult for any Nigerian to match the service, the patriotism, the hard work, the sacrifice of late Dora Akunyelu. And I think if this bill is given the necessary parliamentary approval, we will save millions of lives from those who are in the business of profiting by killing innocent persons. And Mr. President, as a medical doctor, you must see to the execution of this bill to the last. If we do that, we are sending a clear message to those who fought, those who stood up against fake drugs, that the battle is still on and now it has a strong parliamentary backing. I've seen NAFDAC doing a lot of things. The enlightenment campaigns, raiding shops and manufacturing farms, sealing of offices. But you see the practice of killing people using fake drugs continue unabated. And it is so because of impunity. Those who felt they can import counterfeit drug and sell it felt that they are above the law. It even reached a point that some of them feel that they cannot in any way be stopped from their businesses. And I will not stop mentioning the effort of Kodora Akunyili. We remember how she was even trailed by hard assassins. They were nearly about to even expunge life out of her body. So I can say to this that this bill is a reflection of the interests and desires of all Nigerians to see to it that we can believe in the drugs we are buying. Thank you. Titled The Excessive Tuition Fee Charged by the Nigerian Law School. The Senate notes that the Nigerian Law School was established by the Legal Act of 1962, and the establishment of the school became necessary so as to cure the deficiency in the training of Nigerians who obtain qualifications in law abroad and to provide the much-needed practical training to those aspiring to become legal practitioners in Nigeria. Note also that it was due to the growing needs of more Nigerians to be admitted to the Nigerian Law School that the government in 1997 approved the proposal to establish more campuses in Lagos, Kano, and Enugu. The facilities in these campuses were overstretched, and in 2009, 2 additional campuses were established, one in Yola, Adamawa State, and the other in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. Aware that the Nigerian Law School, funded by taxpayers' money through the federal government of Nigeria, worried that the Nigerian Law School continuously charged outrageous tuition fee annually. More worried that the Nigerian Law School is becoming unaffordable to the children of the downtrodden Nigerian masses due to the outrageous tuition fee of over 250,000 for central registration and 20,000 naira as other charges levied on prospective students, excluding a laptop computer which each student must possess. Deeply concerned that the cumulative fees of 315,000 naira is excessively high, including the cost of living for the period of the studies, as a result of which in 2014, a 30-year-old prospective student of Nigerian Law School committed suicide because he or any of his family members could not afford to pay the tuition fees. Cognizance that if this astronomical increase in the tuition fee of Nigerian Law School is left unabated, the Nigerian child in the future cannot afford legal education in Nigeria. Determined to ensure that the children of Nigerian downtrodden masses acquire the practical training required of an aspiring legal practitioner. Results. 1. The prayer to invite the Director General of Nigerian Law School to address the Senate on the incessant increase of tuition fee by the Nigerian Law School. 2. Urge the federal government to increase funding for the Nigerian Law School. And 3. Urge the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights, Legal Matters to ensure, through its oversight function, that the tuition and other charges are reduced. I so moved. Reports, as presented by His Excellency, Rabi Kwankwaso, is a careful documentation of the state of the aviation industry in Nigeria today. We can't forget the memories of the victims of Sosoliso, Dana, Bellevue, and other airlines. And the recommendation clearly addresses all segments of the aviation industry, from work ethics to regulations, and to also the behavior of airlines themselves. And in my own view, this report, if fully implemented by the government, not just taken to dust, will save lives. And it is about life that we're talking about aviation industry. And in general sense, the aviation industry for a very long time have been described by the previous minister who said our planes are flying coffins. And I think we are not very much far from that. But the most important thing, apart from all those things we're going to say here, is to implement the reports. Because from 1999 to date, there have been reports upon reports about the state of aviation industry in Nigeria today. So any difference that can be made from this is to urge on the federal government to implement this report. That will save lives. Thank you very much. I align myself with the motion being raised. But my problem is that there are 109 of us here, and each person has a road problem. And I will say on this very clearly, that motions without money will be motionless. Our road needs are bigger than our pocket, has been clearly spelled out by Senator Bruce. And I will say we have resolved to set up an ad hoc committee. But I will add to this, that this is the work of a proper Senate Committee on Works. This issue has been lingering for a very long time. Even people have made it very clear here. We have about trillions been spent. But from the computations which I have made from 1999 to date, it is within the range of 5.8 trillion on roads. So this clearly defines the abdication of responsibility and pervasive corruption that has only existed within our infrastructural sector. So I will advise on this, I will affirm on this very issue, that this is not an ad hoc issue. All roads needs attention. In my own part of the country, we have as much road problem as there is in the south part of the country and southeast. The difference is that if we have had that 13%, our issue could have been addressed. And on this, I will say it clearly, that with 70 billion being allocated to Federal Ministry of Works, and we need not less than 40 to 45 billion to even complete the East-West Road. So I don't think that money is enough. So I think we should address the reality that we do not have the money to back up our demands. And our demands should be in line with what we have on the ground. Thank you very much. And as comrade in capital letters, Shehu Sani, representing Kaduna Central. I stand as a co-sponsor of this motion. And as a co-sponsor, for the very fact that the issue of the Northeast has been very much my own personal agenda and interest over the years. Before I come to this Senate, even though I come from the Northwest, I had, as an individual, tried to intervene in ending the Boko Haram insurgency. The first intervention was the dialogue I facilitated between the insurgent group and former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who was there to represent the government of Jonathan. The second intervention was the one in which Dr. Ahmed from Kano intervened on behalf of the group to speak to the federal government and explore a way and ways to which this insurgency could end. And the third was a dialogue facilitated by a freelance journalist who is now on self-exile. Now, we are talking about rehabilitation, which is very much necessary, but we cannot rehabilitate if we do not have peace. We can pump in money to repair bridges, and the next day is blown again. We will desire to build the roads that were destroyed, but as long as the insurgency continues, It is as if we are spreading fragrances on an inferno. What I said it is very clear. This insurgency has grown and has spread and has become not just a regional issue, but an international issue. The group is growing in strength, aligning itself with international terror organizations. And there is no doubt about it. Out of all the problems we have in Nigeria, this is the most important. Terrorism appears to be the challenge of our era and the challenge of our time. And we are bound as key players in this era to confront this very important problem. And I will say it very much that what Mr. President has embarked to do, moving and reaching out to neighboring countries, is one out of so many things that need to be done. But we must also explore the possibility of reactivating, reaching out to the insurgents, at least not just for peace alone, but for the possibility of getting the Chibok girls out of captivity that have been in their custody for the past 1 year or so. And on the last note, I will say this, that we are faced with a problem which is a national problem. There is a saying, if you have one snake in one part of the house, all parts of the house will be concerned about it. And I will say it in strong terms, that unless and until both the carrot and the stick approach is given an emphasis and having a solution to this problem,
your mic.
Pumping money to repair roads and bridges and schools, as long as the war continues to ravage that part of the country, we will continue to do that. And it's not possible. Rehabilitation comes in after peace is restored. But I very much align myself, and this very issue now is very important to our country. Thank you. I stand as Comrade Shehu Sani. Comrade in capital letters, representing Kaduna Central, the capital of northern Nigeria. I align myself with this motion in the sense that in the last 10 years, over 2,000 lives have been lost as a result of this tragedy coming from explosions through the tankers. Now, it is clear we can't transport petroleum product via other means. If we have to wait for the refineries to be fixed to save the lives of our people, and if you have to wait for the railways to be fixed to do anything about this, then it will take us eternity to do it. So I will say it in this form, that there is a need for a consistent awareness and cooperation between the Federal Road Safety, the Department of Petroleum Resources, and the Tanker Drivers Union. And I will also say it on this, that we cannot escape the very fact that this is a fallout of so many things we refused to do in the past. And we live in a country where we don't even learn geography even after an earthquake. But I will say this, that to save the repeated cases of this tragedy, this has to be done. But as far as the tanker drivers are concerned, they are just like any other Nigerians trying to make a living. No tanker driver will willingly wish to explode his tank for any reason. The senator from the other side made a point that It has been a menace in Kaduna where they block roads. Well, I should say that blocking roads is part of civil protest. If one of their members is unjustly manhandled by security agencies, certainly they cannot do anything other than to use that very instrument of their own working place to register their protest. So in this line, I will say this, that the tragedy of tanker explosions in Lagos will be addressed partly by a system whereby tank parks will be established outside the city. And it's only when a tanker driver gets a signal that he is ready to unload or offload that he should be given the go-ahead to come inside. Thank you very much. I have only one question for you. As part of your resume, you made mention of your role in the operation of the Radio Kudirat. And I know very well that you have some few colleagues here who were part of your illegal radio station. But I have this question. When you were, before you jet out to run that radio station, we were all in the field. And there was an allegation that you passed through non-conventional borders in escaping out of Nigeria at that time, when most of us were in prison. So, like me, I was in one of the prisons, the Kirikiri prison. So please, can you explain that scenario of what happened at that time? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Nominee, I just have two questions. The first one is on the issue of abandoned projects by the NNPC. In my constituency, there is a petroleum institute that was built, furnished, and was abandoned. That is one. Secondly, I will take you on some of the measures we have taken since we took over office, which is the sacking of some staffs of NNPC, which you euphemistically said rationalization. Now, what have you provided for those persons? Because I had a series of complaints from them. And again, I want you to make a clarification about the exploration of oil in the north, particularly in the Benue and the Lake Chad region. Thank you. I'm Shehu Sani, representing Kaduna Central. I acknowledge your contribution and sacrifice to the change revolution. But I have two questions for you. First of all, whatever you said here is listened to by millions of people within and outside of Nigeria. And whatever you said here will be in record for this generation and the future generations to come. I want you to, the first question is this. What is your recipe for peace between ministers and state governors? Yes, taking cognizance of the events in Rivers and years ago, as you are going to be confirmed as a minister. And secondly, can you define from your own view what corruption is all about According to Karl Klaus, he said prostitution is worse than corruption. The former endangers the morals of an individual, and the latter endangers the morale of an entire country. So can you, in your own view, define what corruption is all about? Thank you. Representing Kaduna Central. Mr. President, this motion is coming at the right time. At the right time in the sense that unemployment is a time bomb in Nigeria today. There is no doubt about it. The largest employer of labor in Nigeria today is politics, where you have people of all age grades, from 16 to 90. Now, if you look at history from 1960 to date, almost every government made claims of job creation. But we have seen a progressive decline in the number of people that have works to do. And with a nation of almost 170 million people, as long as our young people continue to roam the street, graduate out of universities without a job to do, there will be no peace. In the words of John F. Kennedy, he said, a society that cannot provide for the poor cannot protect the rich. We must know it clearly that as long as this nation wants peace, political, socio-economic development, we must carry along those that we left behind. And the concept of job creation, as being seen today, is that of government and government agencies employing people out of school. Now, if we don't take proactive measures that makes it easier for investors to set up industries, commercial ventures, to employ these young people, certainly we are living on a time bomb. And I'm saying it to this Senate that this is a historic opportunity with the spirit of change. It is an historic opportunity for us. If there is any impact we're going to make, if there is any legacy that will be left behind, is to see those millions of our young people outside who don't have jobs now gainfully employed. We talk of crime, violence, kidnapping, terrorism. These are effects of social vices, and unemployment is one of it. When people wake up in the morning, young people, without a job, without a place to go, at least they have nothing to do other than to go after those who have it. So the conflict between the haves and the have-nots will continue to widen, to go bitterly, as long as young people do not have jobs to do. And I will say it in this time, that poverty in Nigeria is going beyond a manageable state. It is becoming a humanitarian issue. And I believe a motion like this should help us come with resolutions that will help the government in this very time to come out with ideas, policies, and programs that are practicable and that are sustainable. Thank you very much. My view on this is that it's not possible for us as leaders and as government to constantly irritate our people that the economy is bad, we can't fund projects, and we are in deep trouble. There is no doubt about it. Treasury's single account is a good idea to check corruption, a good idea to end fraud, a good idea to set a good precedent for a government of probity and transparency. But it is clearly to us that this idea is being abused and exploited. The remitter as a firm represent one new intervention by the private business class to exploit this novel and beautiful idea for their own personal ends. The best way to end this is to take on the path of investigating this issue. How will such a firm exploit such a beautiful idea for their own personal end? And if we don't do that, Nigerian people will rise against us. There is no doubt about it. And I believe the best way we can help the executive is to expose this loophole and to block it. There is nowhere in the world where such a beautiful idea will become a source for some people to enrich themselves. And on the last note, 25 billion as it is a whole lot of money that will build a new city for all our IDPs in the northeastern part of Nigeria. So I will move that strongly the prayers as it is in this motion, we should move to action to get it realized. Thank you. Mr. President, whatever we will say here about cancer, I believe you are very much deep into it. And this bill is apt in the sense that we have lost both prominent and non-prominent Nigerians from this issue of cancer. We lost Chief Gani Fawahimi of blessed memory to cancer. We lost Dr. Biko Ramsan Kuti to cancer. We lost Yinka Craig to cancer. We lost Umbar Musa Radua too to cancer. We lost Sonny Okosun to cancer. I believe that this issue, this health issue on cancer is a very, very serious one, and we should take it very seriously. This bill intends to establish a cancer research institute. But I think, in as much as I identify myself with this very important bill, there's a need for us to do a holistic research on all other research institutes we've been having in this country. Research on malaria, research on chickenpox, even research on Gadi and other things. But most of these research centers, to a larger extent, have not contributed very much in terms of medical sciences in Nigeria. And a research center is not simply buildings and machines. It's also about scientists. Right now, I believe we have less than 3 to 4 oncologists in Nigeria. Who is going to run that very research center? On my way to the airport, I've always seen a very beautiful building with a very big signboard, National Cancer Research Institute. I don't know who owns it, and I don't know what they do there. But I think what we should understand clearly is that cancer is a national and both international problem. There is virtually, from what I understand, from a layman's or a pedestrian perspective, there is virtually no cure for it. So whatever we can do to set up such an institute that will contribute meaningfully towards finding solutions. And the emphasis will be also doing our own things our own way, while taking on the modern scientific ethics. We should also look at the possibility of how our own traditional medicine can fit into the agenda of this center. I thank you very much for this. Mr. President, this motion, which I am a co-sponsor, is one motion that reflects the interests and the concerns of millions of Nigerians today. For years, Fuel shortages in our gas stations have become a perennial and recurring problem. It has defied solutions, and it has also defied views and opinions. I must say on this that Nigeria, as an oil-producing country, just like Algeria, like Iran, like Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, we ought to find a permanent solution to this problem. We need to ask ourselves, those who were advocating for removal of subsidy refuse to take cognizance of the social, political, and economic implications of this. We know it very well that governments of the past has tried to remove this subsidy, but what came up? Mass of people like us led a mass resistance in the street. And from the constituency which I come from, I do not think that the people will still not resist any attempt to remove subsidy. I will say on this, we can't make any informed decision about this issue without summoning the Minister of State to come over here and explain to us the problems and the way out. For the past few days, Nigerians have been suffering. It's been uneasy for many to travel. The prices of goods have skyrocketed, and it has affected lives and livelihood in the last few days. So this motion doesn't need much debate. We have said so much of this from the 6th, 7th, and the 5th Senate. But I think what the 8th Senate could do is to find a solution to this problem so that once and for all, if nations that are in war like Iraq don't have fuel queues, we have no reason to have fuel queues. Thank you very much. Past 3 decades. 1976 to 2015 is almost 40 years. And we have seen within this very period how it was so uncoordinated and confused by people who found themselves as FCT ministers to carry out their functions legally or legitimately. So I am privy to some of the bills that were initially forwarded in the last 30 years for some form of restructuring and formal recognition of some of these council structures. And I will say it that one of the legacies that should be left behind by the 8th Senate now is to see it that we are able to pass this bill. Abuja has been host to the federal government and most importantly to the National Assembly. And with the structure of Abuja, certainly issues could be legitimately challenged in court. And I've said it many times, that it has taken so long for us to do what is so simple. And I believe that with what was said in the bill, that it will cost nothing for us to arrive at a bill. And I think since it has no financial implications, we shouldn't take much time in passing this through. Thank you very much.
All right.
And I need to stop. A petition may only be presented to the Senate by a senator who shall affix his name at the beginning thereof, and other related clauses. Now I have 36 petitions, but I'm presenting 3.
This one. I told you.
Having you the leadership.
Distinguished, what did you say?
Thank you. I have 36 petitions, but I'm presenting 3 only. The first one is a petition from the disengaged staffs of National Health Insurance Scheme who have been unjustly terminated. And the second one is a petition from the sacked staffs of NNPC who have also been unjustly sacked from their job. And then the third one is a petition from the staffs of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital in Kaduna. They have also been unfairly treated by their agency, and all the petitions are not before any court of law. All right.
Come and lay the petition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to guide us. Once we come to petition, please. There is no need shouting point of order, point of order.
Our borders need to be protected. Rice importation is not good for our economy. We must tell ourselves the truth. Whether rice is imported through the borders or through the seas, it is doing serious harm to our economy. In this era of dwindling revenue and our government doing everything it can to preserve our foreign reserve, we cannot afford to continue to enrich farmers in Vietnam, in Thailand, in China, in Indonesia, while we continue to impoverish our own. I think we need to tell ourselves the truth as a nation, that this is not the time to live big. This is the time to adjust ourselves to the realities we find ourselves. It's not possible to say we want to reform our economy, we want to conserve our foreign exchange. At the same time, issues like this continue to be a problem to us. What is happening in Nigeria today, that there is the existence of a rice mafia that have always been in the corridors of power and have always been contributors of finance, election finances. And each time, every government that comes into power, it finds it difficult to step on the toes of this kind of people. And I think it's high time, in the interest of our economy, in the interest of our own country as a whole, we do something about this. And one which is very important, we must sacrifice our appetite for rice. Reduce it to the local rice. Let us sit down and plan our economy. And one of which is we must tell them no. We must tell them no. What is needed now is what can we do for our local farmers to be able to meet up our local demands. It's very clear from what I understand that our local rice production cannot meet up our local demands. But it cannot also solve the problem if we keep on enriching those who profit from bringing rice from Thailand. So in this respect, to some extent, I see value and meaning in this motion. And to a larger extent also, I identify myself with what Kabir Marafa said. The motion clearly is about stopping importation of rice from the borders and making it possible for the rice mafia through the sea to enrich themselves at the expense of our farmers. Thank you very much.
Our women have played an outstanding role in our socio-economic and political development as a nation and as a people. Their contribution is huge and enormous. And there is no better way to appreciate their input and contribution than to utilize this opportunity of change within the 2016 budget to see that an impact is made in transforming their lives. The budgetary provisions for this year meant to assist women in trade and other skills, I think should be very much emphasized. And I will also say on a greater note that there should be the reform of our laws in which a quota should be reserved for women. Because the existing political arrangement as it is, apart from waiving the purchase of forms for women, there is virtually nothing for them. So I fully support that women should be supported and possibly funded to fully participate in our political process. Thank you very much. I identify myself with the spirit of this bill. The Chartered Institute of Capital Market Registrar is an idea whose time has come. If we can recall back before 2008, millions of Nigerians bought shares and the market crashed. And since then, not many people have been refunded or informed on what happened to their investment. This institute, I believe, if it is established, there are a lot of things it can do in terms of public enlightenment of what shares are all about, and also in terms of checking the intrigues and the fraud associated with the capital market. Capital market is an indispensable institution in developing economy. We cannot talk about diversifying our economy without adequately addressing the issue of capital markets. And when we have a registrar, a chartered institute, there will be some form of monitoring, regulation, and inspection on the activities of people involved in capital market. Thank you very much.